It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. ECOWAS Council of Elders urges Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to reconsider their withdrawal. Labour unions in Nigeria reject new minimum wage, gives May 31 deadline for government to ensure reasonable salary.
Should the minimum wage negotiation continue and linger till the end of May, we can no longer guarantee industrial harmony in this country.
Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo assures of an end to the power crisis doomsday.
It is regrettable that the people of Ghana have to experience doomsday again after all what we went through in the past. Please, do something about doomsday now.
And CSOs in Burkina Faso calls on ICC to investigate security situation. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Well, let's begin this afternoon with a call by the Council of Elders of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, under the chairmanship of Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, on the trio of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to reconsider their position in the general interests of the populations and regional integration. The Council of Elders, created by ECOWAS in 2005, is an important instrument for promoting peace, security, and stability in West Africa. The call comes after a two-day retreat from April 29 to 30, 2024 in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Francis Boniface has more details in this report.
This meeting centered on the theme benefiting from the existence of the Council of Elders to respond to current challenges in terms of governance, peace and security in the ECOWAS region. Was an opportunity for the elders of the region to reaffirm their commitment to regional unity, peace and security. In its final communique, the Council of Elders called on West African leaders, including the ruling military in Ouagadougou, Bamako and Niamey, to put aside their differences and come together for peace, stability and prosperity in the region. One of the founding fathers of ECOWAS estimated that the impact of a withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger from the regional institution will have considerable implications for ordinary citizens. Mr. Gowon had offered his services to bring the conflicting parties together. For its part, the Council of Elders reaffirmed its desire to continue to support the efforts of the ECOWAS Commission to find lasting solutions to the many challenges facing the community. Recall that at the end of January 2024, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger announced their withdrawal with immediate effects from ECOWAS, accused of being exploited by foreign powers. Despite attempts to open up the organization, the states of the Sahel Alliance insisted on the irreversible nature of their decision to withdraw from the community institution.
Francis Boniface filed that report. In Mali, as this island country is experiencing worsening humanitarian crisis, especially in northern region, locals and aid group warned on Wednesday that armed groups linked to Islamic State have besieged major towns in northeastern Mali, leaving residents, including some 80,000 children, vulnerable to malnutrition. The town of Menaka has been under siege for 4 months, driving up the prices of food. Of the essential goods like medication are increasingly hard to find, residents and aid groups say. Wani Oud Hamadi, deputy mayor of the town of Menaka, said the humanitarian situation is catastrophic, with displaced people going from house to house asking for food from families. Children are mainly threatened with starvation. For over a decade, Mali, along with its neighbors, Burkina Faso and Niger, has battled an insurgency fought by armed groups, including some allied with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State group. Following military coups in all three nations in recent years, the ruling juntas have expelled French forces and returned to Russia's mercenary units for security assistance instead. Over to Togo, where ECOWAS, the African Union and the International Organization, La Francophonie, ORF, on Monday expressed their satisfaction at the holding of legislative and regional elections on Monday. The three international organizations welcomed the establishment of a permanent consultation framework. They also noted the electoral campaign went smoothly. The Togolese people were called to the polls on Monday to elect their deputies and regional councillors following the adoption of a new constitution on April 19, which shifted the country from a presidential to a parliamentary system. The Togolese opposition, which denounces the new text, sees it as a way for the current head of state, Faure Gnassingbé, to stay in power. The results have still not been made public. In Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye yesterday received the list of grievances from trade unionists on the occasion of Labor Day. At the ceremony in the banqueting hall of the presidential palace, the trade unionists presented their various demands to the president. Modi Guro is the Secretary General of Senegal's National Workers' Federation.
We have highlighted the concerns of the working class, the employment of young people, the safety of life, the problems of social protection, the improvement of purchasing power, the rights of workers, the enrichment of social protection, the strengthening of social equality, and so many other questions that have been raised.
Receiving the list of grievances, President Diomaye Faye, who says the state is committed to the protecting workers and working for their development, immediately instructed for a reform of the labor code.
I have asked the Prime Minister to engage the government concerning social partners to reform the labor code to better meet our ambition to promote employment, investment, and the protection of workers. In addition, this tax project will take into account the strengthening of the legal powers of the administration to work to significantly improve the effectiveness of its interventions in the framework of the regulation of professional relations.
Senegalese President Diomaye Faye speaking there. Still on labor matters, the organized labor in Nigeria has handed the federal government May 31 deadline to come up with a realistic and reasonable new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. This deadline was made known during the Workers' Day celebration at the Eagle Square in Abuja on Wednesday. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC), Joe Ajero, and his counterpart in the Trade Union Congress (TUC), Festus OSIWA, were unanimous that the 30,000 naira current minimum wage has been grossly insufficient for Nigerian workers in the light of current economic realities and inflationary pressure, including food inflation, hike in energy and transportation costs, among others. They insisted that a new living wage of 615,000 naira be expeditiously approved by President Bola Tinubu administration before the end of May. Here is Joe Ajero and Festus OSIWA issuing a statement during the Workers' Day celebration in Abuja.
We have pressed for a 2-year lifespan for the new act with automatic adjustment triggered by inflation suppressing 7.5%. Every employer with 5 employees and above must comply. We demand robust monitoring and strict penalties for non-compliant state governments. We have based our figures on real data gathered from our responses nationwide, ensuring that our demand reflects the true cost of living for an average family. Our message is clear. Anything less than a living wage condemns workers to poverty.
Should the minimum wage negotiation continue and linger till the end of May, we can no longer guarantee industrial harmony in this country.
The NLC and TUC hereby advise NEC and power sector operators to reverse the last increase in electricity tariff within the next 1 week. That the government restrain itself from the use of violence in civil engagement within the industrial relations sphere. An immediate reversal of the unilateral hike in electricity tariff, enthronement of service reflective tariff, and stoppage of segregation of consumers.
However, on Wednesday, the federal government of Nigeria raised the salaries of some categories of workers between 25% and 35% respectively.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, let's cross over now to Niger, where migrant smuggling has resumed in the Agadez region of the country, as several smugglers are using the route to make their way to Libya and Algeria, according to an NGO. Several smugglers arrive at the Agadez public transport square mainly Tuesdays and Thursdays of the week and depart for Europe in loaded vehicles. The resumption of migrant smuggling in northern Niger follows the ruling military junta's cancellation of the decree banning the transport of migrants in the country. Oguberika completes the story.
Since the reopening of Agadez, at least 5,000 migrants have already passed through the city on their way to Libya and Algeria in the hope of crossing the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe. Shehu Azizu, the coordinator of the Alamafam Sahara project, said there were around 3 to 5 departures from Agadez to Libya each month, with each departure carrying some 2,000 people. From the start of the year, Alamafam Sahara registered at least 9,000 migrants who have been turned back from Algeria to Niger. The recent lifting of Niger's ban on people smuggling has been welcomed by many in Agadez, a city on the edge of the Sahara and a busy transit point for migrants heading towards North Africa and on to Europe. The law was introduced in 2015 with the backing of the European Union during a period of high levels of migration to Europe. At the time, the UN estimated at least 4,000 migrants traveled through Agadez every week without travel document.
Gaberika filed that report. Well, let's take you back to Nigeria, where the House of Representatives Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream and Midstream have called on security agencies to take action against fuel marketers engaging in hoarding and arbitrary price hikes, exacerbating the fuel queues across the country. In a joint statement signed by Chairman Kenga Gochinyere and Henry Okoje, the lawmakers said they have engaged with stakeholders in the petroleum distribution value chain from where they found out the act of sabotage, creating artificial scarcity of petroleum motor spirit. WDL's Abuja correspondent Usman Mara tells us more in this report.
The committee's investigation revealed that despite available petrol products with at least 1.5 billion litres in storage facilities, enough for 30 days, logistical challenges have caused a resurgence of fuel queues. These challenges include difficulties in transporting products from mother vessels to onshore, movement of products with marine shuttle vessels, and disruptions in the escarvos channels. The committee is assured that the logistical supply disruptions have been addressed and the petrol scarcity will soon be resolved. However, they accused some stakeholders of economic sabotage and urged security agencies to clamp down on hoarding, arbitrary price increments, product diversion and smuggling. Corroborating the stand of the lawmakers, a coalition of All Progressive Congress support groups at a news conference also accused oil marketers of deliberately sabotaging government's efforts. Professor Muhammad Kailani is the Director General of Confederation of APC support groups.
They were happy, the subsidy was on, and they were making billions. Now that the subsidy has been removed, no more free money. Now they resorted to hoarding these petroleum products so that they will maximize. They are the ones suffering us, our own brothers.
As the finger pointing between NNPC Limited and oil marketers persists, the plight of Nigerians worsens with lengthy queues at filling stations, contributing to a surge in transport fares, essential commodity prices, and service costs, further exacerbating the hardship faced by Nigerians. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
The organized labor in Ghana has called for a speedy resolution to the power crisis in the country. According to the Trades Union Congress, Ghanaians cannot afford to endure the effects of the power challenges any longer, as it severely impacts businesses and could lead to widespread unemployment if not resolved swiftly. WDL's Nadia Tete reports.
Addressing the May Day parade in Ghana's capital, Accra, on May 1, 2024, Dr. Yauba, Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress, lamented the worsening economic situation in the country and its impact on workers' lives. He called on the government to look beyond the IMF and institute measures that would improve the conditions of labor.
Today, we are paying interest rates of 30% to access loans from the banks. In the informal economy, interest rates can even be as high as 50% or even sometimes higher. Our children graduate from the universities and colleges after we have spent so much on them, but they cannot find jobs. And the trouble is that there seems to be no end of this socioeconomic hardship in sight.
Dr. Ba also expressed concern over the challenges with power supply, describing it as unbearable. He warned that if not addressed swiftly, the situation could lead to potential job losses.
It is regrettable that the people of Ghana have to experience doing so again after all what we went through in the past. Please, do something about doing so now.
In response to Labour's concerns, President Wadr assured them that the power challenges popularly known as Dumso are now a thing of the past.
Indeed, over the past few days, we have witnessed stable electricity supply across the country with no load shedding reported anywhere yesterday. For the past 7 years, we have worked tirelessly to keep the lights on, and I am confident that the unfortunate era of Dumso will not return.
However, the president's response has been met with skepticism, with many Ghanaians taking to social media to challenge his claims. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS Council of Elders urges Mabako, Ouagadougou and Niamey to reconsider their withdrawal. Labour unions in Nigeria reject new minimum wage, gives a May 31 deadline for government to ensure reasonable salary. Kenyan President Akufo-Addo shows of an end to the power crisis Dumso. And still ahead, CSOs in Burkina Faso calls an ICC to investigate security situation. We don't have the guest interview and press review. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, don't forget to stream it live on WADR.org, Facebook, and YouTube. Let's cross now to Liberia, where President Joseph Boakai has outlined some achievements recorded by his government as it marks 100 days in office. Boakai in his address to the nation mentioned health, education, infrastructure, and the judiciary sectors that witnessed tremendous progress. The Liberian leader's update became necessary following his short-term policy document for the country commissioned upon assuming office. As WDR's Ellington Popper reports, the document is tagged 100-Day Action Plan.
In a special address to the nation, Boakai said the 100 Days Action Plan will prepare the pathway to rescue Liberia and put it back on a trajectory of a stronger, robust, and responsive economy in the coming years.
The key target for the government deliverable for the first 100 days was the reconditioning of roads to ensure that they are pliable to create access and boost economic activities. We earmarked 11 key projects across the country to make sure that primary roads are all pliable during all seasons.
Meanwhile, many Pakia Domoy, an independent political analyst, believes such commitment is achievable, but not without compromise.
As to whether one can achieve that in 100 days, that's some of the poetry that comes for campaigning. It was ambitious. It certainly will not happen within 100 days. And it's clear when you read on the board that this is a 100 days initiative and the project duration is for 24 months.
At this point, former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is calling for unity among Liberians, urging the young people to desist from spreading misinformation that could discourage foreign investors.
Those of us who are not in any direct government role also have a full obligation and commitment to do what we can to move our country forward. And that's where, when you talk about people changing attitudes, changing mindset, is to say, hey, yes, we may not like everything, we may not see the things we want to see, we may not like the people who are appointed, but we still have an obligation to do what we can to carry out our responsibility as citizens.
President Joseph Boakai, who had just spent his first 100 days in office, has promised to address the constraints facing the nation and its people. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
Civil society organizations in Burkina Faso have expressed worry over the political and security situation in the country and the civic space. The CSOs under the umbrella of the Coalition of French-Speaking Africa for the ICC is calling upon the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, African Union and the United Nations regarding numerous massacres of civilians in Burkina Faso and the deprivation of freedom of actors from civil society, unions and politicians. Leaders of these coalitions are urgently calling for investigations and prosecutions of the alleged perpetrators of these crimes. In a letter sent to The Hague, but also to interlocutors of the African Union and the United Nations, the French-speaking coalitions noted the millions of displaced Burkinabe citizens. The coalition expressed dismay over the alleged thousands of dead victims of terrorist attacks and the abuses committed by the forces regular or their substitute VDP.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's head back to our crowds. We join Nadia Tete for the newspaper review.
Good morning and welcome to the newspaper review segment. Let's find out what the dailies are reporting in Accra, Ghana. So the very first newspaper, the Daily Graphic newspaper, banner headline, political differences mustn't breed disunity. President exhorts nations. So that was President Akufo-Addo speaking at the May Day parade yesterday. Other stories on the front page of the Daily Graphic, reduce over-reliance on imports to stabilize CD. And that's from the Trade Union Congress to Ghanaians. And NPP scales through Ejiso by-election. Let's move on to other newspapers. The Daily Post newspaper, Mahama warns Akufo-Addo about election in December. And GRA SML scandal, next NDC government will prosecute culprits. That's according to the communications officer of the NDC, Sami Jimfi. Also on the front page, Betty Mould criticizes NPP's handling of Dumso, applauds Mahama's approach. The New Finder newspaper, front page here says, new labor law to be enacted by end of this year, President Akufo-Addo says. And also here on the front page of the Finder newspaper, world market price for cocoa drops by 27% in 2 days. The New Crusading Guide newspaper, banner headline, remove your mask and testify or we free Nyantechi. Court orders investigative journalist Anas Arimiyao Anas. Also on the front page of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, will bring back Eduomi to NPP, and that's according to the national chairman of the governing New Patriotic Party. Eduomi was an independent candidate in the just ended Ejiso by-election. The reason he was critical to the election was that he was from the fold of the NPP and decided to go independent because of some grievances he had, and he managed to poll as much as 21,000 votes compared to the winner's votes, which was some 27,000 votes. Also on the front page, NPP retains a Ejiso seat and court jails man 7 years for cocoa smuggling. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's protect our democracy, President Akufo-Addo tells organized labor. And soldier shot dead at Kaswa Millennium City over land dispute, and the Ghana Armed Forces has condemned the act. Also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, NHIA releases 170.7 million CDs to service providers nationwide. So the final newspaper I have here, the Daily Guide newspaper, front page, Dumso is over. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. Well, that assertion has been taken with a pinch of salt because the reality of many Ghanaians is very different from what the president is talking about. And that'll be it for the dailies today, coming to you from Accra, Ghana. My name is Nadia Tete. It's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Nadia, for the newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Well, the 15th Organization of Islamic Cooperation OIC is set to commence this weekend in the Gambian capital, Banjul. Heads of states and delegations from the 57 member countries will be in the West African nation from the 4th to 5th of May 2024. However, the ministerial meeting commences today, Thursday. This meeting will precede discussions of the heads of state on Saturday and Sunday. I spoke earlier with our Banjul correspondent, Sanguli Janko, who is on the ground to bring us up to date with the latest happening. Sanguli, thank you so much again for your time. First of all, tell us what is happening on the ground, because from all the news and reports we've been receiving, there seems to be so much activities. Share with us, what's the latest on the ground?
Thank you very much for having me. Like rightly said, there's so much activities going around here. At the start of Dakar International Conference Center in Banjul, where the 15th OIC summit will take place. At the moment, people are settling with all of tents around, a lot of media, all over the world are settling. While we await for the official opening ceremony of the ministerial meeting, of course, which involves the foreign ministers of all the 57 member states that will be converging here in Banjul. At the moment, it's tentatively just, the preps before the opening ceremony of the ministerial meeting. That's what's happening here right now in Banjul.
All right. Well, you mentioned ministerial meeting. What is this meeting about? And what does it entail?
So the ministerial meeting is a very, very, very important meeting, because usually this meeting precedes the heads of state meeting of the OIC, that is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So these are experts meetings. Of course, these ministerial meetings are also preceded by other experts meetings, and they will provide information to the ministers, and these foreign ministers will look at these these informations, conversations about the various countries of the 15 countries. So this ministerial meeting is a very important, because this is where the key decisions are being made among the ministers. They are the ones who make important decisions involving all the 57. It's one of the most important activities of the OIC summit.
Well, we understand that thousands of delegates are expected. Just give us a figure of the number of heads of state, perhaps a number of other delegates that will be coming to the Gambia for this event.
For political and numbers of state, that would be OIC summit here in Banjul. But I can tell you over 3,000 delegates are expected to be in Banjul for the 5th.
That was Sankuli Janko there. We'll be bringing you more reports in the course of our broadcast. In sport news, we're beginning golf. Our superstar Tiger Woods still hopes to play one tournament a month for the rest of the year, despite his physical limitations in the wake of a 2021 car crash. The 15-time major champion drew huge crowds at the Masters last month, but his 16-over par total was the highest 72-hole score of his career and left him last among the 60 golfers who made the cut at Augusta National. Even so, Woods indicated he was looking forward to tackling the PGA Championship at Valhalla on May 16 with the US Open at Pinehurst in June and the British Open at Royal Troon in Scotland in July. If Woods can manage it, it will mark the first time since 2019 he has played in all 4 major championships. To do so again will require detailed attention to his physical recovery. And in football, Nicolas Felger gave Borussia Dortmund a 1-0 home win over Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League semi-final first leg on Wednesday. Seeking a return to the final of the first time since 2013, the 1997 winners were dogged and determined out muzzling their heavily favoured opponent. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudaju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, RWDL News, and Facebook West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullahi Hassan. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3